야, 나 대리 싫으니 우수잖아. 수인. 소리. 어디다 다래? Heart Sutra. Indonesian. Oh, you looks like European. Ah, oh, maybe Dutch, isn't it?
Sutra Sari, Arya Bhagawati Sutra Sari, kesempurnaan kebijaksanaan. Sujud kepada para Buddha dan Bodhisattva. Demikianlah yang telah saya dengar pada suatu waktu. Pada waktu itu, yang Buddha sedang berada di Raja Gritha, di puncak bukit Widakuta, bersama dengan serombongan biksu dan Bodhisattva. Saat itu, yang Buddha sedang terselap dalam meditasi ajaran yang disebut kesadaran yang mendalam. Pada saat yang sama, Arya Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteswara mengamati secara seksama praktek kesempurnaan kebijaksanaan prasna paramita yang mendalam. Mengamati secara sempurna bahwa pancakanda, kelima bagian dari diri seseorang, tidak mempunyai sifat keberadaan yang hakiki. Kemudian, melalui pengaruh kekuatan Hyang Buddha, Biksu Buddha Sariputra berpaling dan bertanya kepada Arya Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteswara, jika seorang putra atau putri keluarga agung ingin mengikuti praktek prasna paramita yang mendalam, apa yang seharusnya mereka lakukan? Inilah kemudian jawaban yang diberikan oleh Arya Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteswara kepada biksu muda Sariputra. Inilah Sariputra, apa yang harus direnungkan oleh seorang putra atau putri keluarga agung jika mereka berkehendak mengikuti praktek prasna paramita yang mendalam. Pertama, lihatlah bahwa pancakanda, kelima bagian dari diri seseorang, tidak mempunyai sifat keberadaan yang hakiki. Wujudmu adalah sunyata, sunyata adalah wujudmu. Sunyata itu tidak lain dari wujudmu, dan wujudmu tidak lain dari sunyata. Demikian pula dengan rasa, kecerdasan, emosi dan kegiatan mental yang lain, dan berbagai kesadaran, semuanya sunya. Dengan demikian dapat dikatakan Sariputra, semua keberadaan itu sunya, tanpa ciri-ciri, tanpa mula, tanpa akhir, tidak pernah bernoda, tidak pernah menjadi bersih, tidak berkurang, tidak bertambah. Dengan demikian dapat dikatakan Sariputra, dalam sunyata tiada wujud, tiada rasa, tiada kecerdasan, tiada emosi dan kegiatan mental yang lain, tiada berbagai kesadaran. Tiada mata, tiada telinga, tiada hidung, tiada lidah, tiada badan, tiada pikir, tiada yang dilihat, tiada yang didengar, tiada yang dibau, tiada yang dirasakan, tiada yang disentuh, dan tiada yang dipikir. Tiada indera penglihatan, tiada kesadaran indera penglihatan, dan semua ini benar seluruhnya, termasuk unsur pikir dan kesadaran unsur pikiran. Tiada kesalah pengertian mengenai duniamu. Tiada berakhirnya kesalah pengertian ini. Dan semua ini benar seluruhnya, termasuk proses penuaanmu dan kematianmu. Juga diberhentikannya proses penuaanmu dan kematianmu. Tiada duka, tiada sebab duka, tiada berakhirnya duka, tiada jalan untuk mengakhiri duka, tiada kebijaksanaan, tiada yang dicapai, dan tiada yang tidak dicapai. Maka Sariputra, karena tiada yang harus dicapai, para bodhisattva dapat melaksanakan praktek prasna paramita dan tinggal terserat dalam prasna paramita ini sehingga kesadaran mereka bebas dari halangan atau gangguan apapun, dan ini membuat mereka bebas dari segala ketakutan. Dengan mengatasi semua kesalahpengertian yang ada, mereka mencapai tingkat akhir bebas dari duka, nirwana. Semua Buddha masa lampau, sekarang dan masa yang akan datang juga mengikuti dan mengandalkan prasna paramita ini, sehingga mereka dihantarkan menuju pencerahan sempurna, mencapai tingkat yang tak terbandingkan, pencerahan agung yang lengkap dan sempurna. Maka begitulah kata-kata suci dari prasna paramita, kata-kata suci dari pengetahuan yang agung, kata-kata suci yang tiada taranya, kata-kata suci yang tak terbandingkan, kata-kata suci yang secara tuntas mengakhiri semua duka, kata-kata suci yang harus dimengerti sebagai kebenaran sejati yang tidak mungkin palsu, kata-kata suci prasna paramita yang ditutupkan untukmu. Tayata gate gate para gate para samgate Bodhi Swaha.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Some of you may know through Tisha Dipamkara, so we Tibetan Buddhism also have some connection with Indonesian Buddhism in ancient time. Tisha Dipamkara, before he came to Tibet, he spent some time in Indonesia and received general teaching, and particularly the Bodhisattva teaching from Lamas Selingba. So maybe Tisha Dipamkara, of course, he came from Bengali, so his mother tongue Bengali, I think. So since he spent some time in Indonesia, he may know Indonesian language, maybe. So like that. So indeed, I'm very happy. Thank you. Now, today, about Tantrayana. Of course, through Tibetan. Da sanga doji tekbe che di conditions level ina sanga doji tekwas dan 직시도가 다 직시기 상세의 가르쳐 걸으려면 용자지 말이지. 좀 전에 송배 거둘이네 용자지 송야 말이. 자, 뒤에 냠니 제배 거둘이 상시 배배 두고 하지래 제가. 배나 당시 냠지 로지.
And the practitioners also didn't do the practice rather publicly. And then with regard to, even within the Sutrayana, the bodhicitta, cultivation of bodhicitta through this means of equalizing and exchanging oneself with others was not a practice which was given in the public. But even that was said to have been practiced very secretly. And so therefore Tantra is something which has to be practiced in secret by beings who were highly developed in their spiritual attainment. And then mantra, because of that, it is the Tantric teaching is called secret, and mantra means protecting the mind. Man refers to the mind, and tra has the connotation of saving, protecting. And so what Tantrayana protects one from is that of the ordinary perception and ordinary conception of oneself. And therefore, of course, we have certain practices of Tantra where you can recite mantras and so forth. But the main disciple or the follower of Tantra is what they do is they visualize themselves as a deity, and therefore within that perspective, within that vision of a deity, they don't they do away with the apprehension of themselves as being some ordinary person, and therefore it's called mantra. And then Vajra here refers to visualizing oneself as a deity, and within this, even while you visualize yourself as a deity, it doesn't happen while you still hold on to this ordinary body and mind that you have now. So what it means is Vajra here refers to having meditated on the emptiness first, and from within that meditation on emptiness, then you transform into a deity. And the main specific disciples, as they're called, the receptive disciples, the main ones should have realized emptiness, have the penetrative vision or insight into emptiness, and then from within that meditation on emptiness, while your mind is fully absorbed in emptiness, then all the ordinary appearances also disappear, and that mind itself, absorbed in emptiness, in your imagination, from that state of meditation on emptiness, then you arise, or you transform yourself into a deity, and therefore the deity becomes the basis for the realization of emptiness as well. So when you do that, there is some significance of so in Tantra, when you meditate, in the Sutrayana, of course, when you meditate on emptiness, you are not emphasizing on or making effort to see the object onto which you establish emptiness. But because the mind becomes very familiar with the emptiness, And of course, as the practitioner progresses in his or her experience of emptiness deeper and deeper, then there may be a time when all the rest of the objects, the conventional objects, might also disappear from their vision while they are absorbed in emptiness. But here in Tantra, you right from the beginning, then you will you do realize emptiness, and within that perspective you also imagine or visualize a deity, yourself as deity, and therefore this within one instance of consciousness you have both the profound vision of emptiness and the vast vision of the deity. And therefore, these two become indivisible in tantric practice of deity yoga. And so, you arise into a deity from this state of mind which is absorbed in emptiness. So, when you within that experience, when you think about an I, then this I is designated, or it happens, the sense of I happens on the basis of the visualization of the deity. And therefore you have what we call the divine pride and the clear vision of a deity. And so that is the meaning of Vajra here. And then Yana, or vehicle, refers to the means by which you travel to the destination of enlightenment. So that which leads you, that means, but that leads you to that and to the goal is called the vehicle. So that's why we have the term secret mantra, Vajra, vehicle. So why do we need to have this pure vision of yourself as a deity and the divine pride of yourself as a deity? If you say it's just because this was what the Vajradhara has said, then that's not enough. So for example, even in the case of the perfection vehicle, the Sutrayana, this body, the aggregates, the psychophysical aggregates that we have, which were results of the this samsaric psychophysical aggregate, which are the results of our ignorance and the karma and delusions. So within this body, when someone practices the path, they can reach the arhatship. Even after reaching arhatship, they could still have this body, the 5 psychophysical aggregates, which are the results of those of destructive emotions and karma. But after death, what remains? If you was to say that only the mind remains after, even after death for an arahat, so for example, in our case, when we die, this body, when a person finishes his or her lifespan, then he's said to have died. And so the consciousness, your consciousness has left the body and has severed its connection with the body. But while you are in the clear light state, it's a very subtle consciousness. So when this karmically obtained psychophysical aggregate has stopped, then there should be this clear light consciousness still left. And therefore, in the case of the arhats, even after their death, there is something called the mental body. So when arhats die, they still remain in that mental body. I'm not clear about it, but for the Mahayana practitioners, when the bodhisattvas reach the pure grounds, then it is said that they do attain certain body, which is called, which is the result of uncontaminated karmas. So this kind of was mental body that the bodhisattvas attain is said to have been attained through what are known as the ground of the imprint of ignorance and uncontaminated karma. And this is, of course, sometimes referred to also as one of the 4 maras. And so even after having attained that kind of mental body, then there is also depth of that for bodhisattvas. So maripakshaksa, or the ground of the imprint of ignorance, is that of the cognitive obscuration. So this body that is attained through such cognitive obscuration is something that we have to also abandon. So does this kind of body, the mental body, serve as a substantial cause for the form body of a Buddha? It's very difficult to say so. So if you say that this kind of body serves as a substantial cause for that of the wisdom dharmakaya, then the cause and the result are not compatible with each other. So it's very difficult, because this body, the mental body, is still contaminated. And the Dharmakaya, or the wisdom body, is something uncontaminated. So at the time of the Buddhahood, what you attain is that of being able to serve others effortlessly. So for that, the 3 secrets of body, speech, and mind have to be of one taste. So it's very difficult for that kind of the 3 secrets of body, speech, and mind of a Buddha, which are of one taste, to have come from that of this mental body that has come from some the imprint of the ignorance. So for that wisdom body of a Buddha, you should have something which is which has similarity in aspect to it. As at the causal level, the cause has to be something which is similar to that result of the wisdom body. So, according to the highest Yoga Tantra text, there's a unique explanation of how to attain such a subtle body is attained. So if you can think along that line, it makes real sense. So if you, with regard to that, you can understand it from Nagarjuna's 5 stages, and then there was Judu, and then Nagabodhi's Leta Namje. In Mother Tantra, the Shigyu Doji Pur, the Vajra tent, without meditation on emptiness, which is complemented also by bodhicitta, as I explained yesterday. So, as we explained yesterday, you do away with certain destructive emotions and reach the path of seeing. And then at the beginning of the 7th ground, then you do away with the destructive emotions completely. And then during the next 3 bodhisattva grounds, from the 8th to the 10th, then the cognitive obscurations are combated and overcome. So what this shows is, by only through a meditation or cultivation of this emptiness with the complete aspect, supreme aspect, you can overcome this cognitive obscuration. So Nagabodhi says that if emptiness were the means, then that alone cannot lead to Buddhahood, because there is no cause at the causal level. There is no cause which has a resemblance in aspect to that of the resultant state of a form body of a Buddha. Although there is a path which has the same resemblance of the wisdom body of a Buddha during the causal stage, that wisdom is completely free from all duality. So therefore, the ignorance and the mind which is affected by this ignorance are rather gross forms of consciousness. And whereas the substantial cause of the wisdom body should be a subtler state of consciousness. And therefore, if you look at this Nagabodhi's text, you will understand this to be true. Because the cause is not different from the result, so Nagabodhi is saying that it's not enough to have the path that is taught in the Sutrayana with regard to the meditation on emptiness, which is called the Namgun Chokden Dongpanyi, fully supremely aspected emptiness, which is taught in Sutrayana, is not enough for the Dharmakaya. And therefore, Nagabodhi says that we also should have a path which resembles the form body of a Buddha. And also we should have a path which has a resemblance to the wisdom body of a Buddha. Of course, with regard to the second one, there is something which is taught in the Sutrayana. But then, with regard to the former, the cause which has resemblance to that of the form body, it is not taught in the Sutrayana. In Sutrayana, or perfection vehicle, in the process of training on the path of enlightenment, Buddhahood, the Bodhisattvas, of course, after coming out of their meditation on emptiness, they engage in practices of generosity and so forth, for accumulating the merit for attaining that of the form body. So, the cause at the causal level, the cause which has some resemblance to that form body of a Buddha is that of within the context of Tantra. Then you have to meditate yourself as a deity. So why you need to visualize yourself as a deity is the form body at the resultant stage of a Buddhahood, which has the attributes of these 32 major and 80 minor marks. To attain such a body, you should have at the causal level a substantial cause, which leads to that, which has a similar aspect to that result. And then, with regard to the causes, Asanga mentions unwavering condition, impermanent condition, and then potential condition. In Sutra, Buddha says, because this exists, that arises. Because this takes birth, that also takes birth. And then, because this stops, that also therefore, these also are taught in the sutra, the three conditions. So whatever is produced must come from causes. They cannot arise causelessly. And therefore, there must be a cause which gives rise to it. And because this takes birth, that takes birth, shows that it's not only enough to have a cause, what it shows is that if as long as there is a cause which gives rise to something, the effect, the cause which gives rise to its effect, it must be something impermanent. So the cause itself, which gives rise to its effect, must come from its own cause. And then, with regard to the potential condition, sorry. So whatever the effect is, that effect must come from a cause which has the potential to give rise to it. Otherwise, the different results will not come about. So just as this is the case with the external world, similarly, in the case of the internal world, we are talking about Buddhahood, which is qualified, which is the nature of the four kayas, where the three secrets are of one taste. For that kind of resultant stage, you have to have a cause which has a similar aspect or resemblance to that. So this mind that we have now, which is full of ignorance, bound by ignorance, cannot in itself become the cause of Buddha's mind. So the Buddha's three secrets of one body, speech, and mind, which are of one taste. In the language of Goya Samaja, we use the term the union. So the union at that level of Buddhahood, the stage of normal learning, has to come from the union at the trainee's level. So it has to come from wisdom, exalted wisdom, which is free from the destructive emotions, the afflictive thoughts and emotions. Of course, even after having attained the meaning clear light, the Bodhisattva still has the obscuring cognitive obscuration, but the mind of this meaning clear light in itself is not tainted in its intrinsic nature, not tainted by any defilements. And so, since time beginningless, not only that the mind is empty of inherent existence, but the mind, the basic nature of the mind is not tainted or by defilements. And therefore it is also termed as the all-excellent. So when we say there's no beginning to the self, this is the basis for such thinking, such thought. And so according to Tantra, you have the illusory body, the pure illusory body, as the substantial cause for form body of a Buddha. And then for the Dharmakaya, you have that of the mind, which is free from that of the duality, dualistic appearance. So what is said in the Sutrayana is, of course, with regard to the bodhisattvas attaining the mental body, and then having the mind, which is meditating on emptiness with all aspects, based on the very gross state of mind. Of course, there are said to be causes for the Buddha's bodies, but then it's very difficult to try to prove that these can go to serve as the substantial causes for the form body and the wisdom body of the Buddha. Of course, even as we die, we have we go through the process of dying, and then there is the clear light state of mind in which we state. Recently, when I was in Sera Monastery, I heard about a geshe who has died, and it had been several days since his death when I got there, but I didn't have the time to visit him. But his body was, I was told that his body was still very fresh. And then also in Gyume, one monk died, and his body remained very fresh for several days. So why does this happen? That even after someone's clinical death, their bodies do not decay and smell. So our explanation is that because there is still the subtle clear light mind in the body. So scientifically, what we could say is that the neuron, the brain has stopped working. But even after the brain death, the body doesn't decay because of this clear light mind. So once the clear light mind leaves the body, then there are indications of it, such as the fluids coming from the nostril, and then the body shows signs of decaying. So perhaps it's been about 15 years. 15 years ago, some because we are I have discussions with scientists. And at that time, the scientists left some machine with me to check people who are going through death and undergoing death. In the beginning, earlier we had one or two persons in Dharamsala who died, but we didn't have the machine. But once they left the machine, we didn't have anybody whom we could check. So I have told the scientists that perhaps we have to ask somebody to die, and then so that we can use the machine to check what is going on during that. So if we had somebody who can do that, but then about 2 years ago, when the former Gaden Tripa died, after he had died, I got some message about his death, and then I sent some people immediately down to South India from Dalai hospital, because they had the machines with them. So after maybe 3 or 4 days after the former Tirumbuch's death, the people from Dalai hospital reached there, and then they put on all these gadgets on his body, on his head, and then the report was given to the scientists in America. And the scientists told me that it is something very unexplainable. So according to science, to make it a scientific finding liable, they should have more numbers of people that they can do this kind of test. So although we had few people, like two more people in Serra and Gyume, who died in the meantime, we didn't get the message in time, and therefore we couldn't test them. So the essence of Tantra is that it teaches the 4 Buddha bodies. The 4 Buddha bodies of Svabhavakaya, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. In the Pali tradition, they don't talk about these 4 bodies of a Buddha. Of course, they do talk about the Buddha. And they do talk about the Bodhisattvas, but the Bodhisattva perhaps is referred to as the Buddha during his while he was training on the path to become a Buddha, and perhaps not other than that. They don't count any Bodhisattvas. Perhaps they may have some accounts, but I'm not sure. I have an American friend, a nun. She does some research, and what is said in the Pali text. One time she said she went to Thailand to do her research, and she told me that one abbot of Thai monastery told him, so this abbot of Thai abbot told her that he actually saw the Buddha himself. So although according to the Bali texts, according to their own tenet system, the Buddha cannot exist at that time when he saw it. But then this abbot was told actually by his teacher that this teacher saw the Buddha, and the teacher was had told him that according to our own tenet system, we cannot accept the Buddha still existing today. But then this is what I saw actually. And this student, the abbot, told this to the American nun, and also the abbot himself had one time gone to China, and in one of the temples he was praying. He saw some light coming from the shrine on his head, and it was a picture of that was taken by somebody else, and I saw this picture. And then Master Atisha, of course, they came to Tibet and wrote the path to the lamp on the path to enlightenment. And in there is mention of Tantra. And perhaps Chandarakshita also had written some tantric texts. So Adisha himself wrote this text, and sometimes when we find tantric texts, Buddhist tantric texts, people tend to say that this may have been written by a person similar with a similar name, Atisha, but not the Atisha who visited Tibet. But this is not the case with Atisha. I had a friend, an Indian Sanskrit scholar. He did some research on the stainless light commentary on Kalachakra Tantra. So during his research, he went to Nepal, and one time when he was in Nepal, he was researching on the Sanskrit texts, manuscripts, and then at that time he found a tantric text written on palm tree, palm leaf, just a single folio. When he found it, he just read it, and then it has the content of that folio is about so he found that when he read it, he said that this text was written, this folio, the text was written by Arya Deva, who also wrote the 400 verses of. So from that time, he was convinced that Arya Deva, who was a great Madhyamaka master, had practiced the Tantra as well. And then another Sanskrit scholar from Varanasi told me that the style of writing of Arya Master Chandrakirti, in his writing of the Prasanapada, his style of writing in Prasanapada was similar to that of the style of writing in the Pradipodhyatana, or the clear lamp that he wrote. So he also said that these two texts were written by the same person, Chandrakirti. So with regard to the potential condition, perhaps we may, if we are not able to if we cannot explain this in general, from the unless we rely on the highest yoga tantra for this kind of detailed explanation, then it's very difficult to explain some things. And therefore, unless we can accept that the four Buddha bodies, just relying on the Pali text is not sufficient to explain the Buddhas. So it's very difficult unless we can explain precisely the workings of this causality. It's very difficult for us to explain in general terms. Did I talk too much? So of course we need to understand these things. Otherwise, if I just ring the bell and recite the Om Savatatagata and all these mantras, you will not have any understanding. So it's, I should give some more explanation. Otherwise, it's not enough. I also wish to say this, which I also tell others. In Slovakia, last year or so I was there. I met a Tibetan friend, one Slovakian, and he's very fond of Tibetan culture and religion. And he, at that time, he had an exhibition. He's made beautiful mountains from the cotton, and then he has also made models of monasteries and so forth, and then also lots of pictures of monasteries. It's beautiful. So as I entered the exhibition, what was their first thing that was there was a very frightening kind of mask. And then he had taken pictures in Nepal. There was a sadhu who was meditating, with who smeared the ash on his forehead. And next to it was a buffalo being slaughtered for sacrifice. So he was introducing Tibetan Buddhism, actually. So there was a sadhu, and then a buffalo being slaughtered. And of course, and then with all these masks and so forth, to have the buffalo, the sacrifice of buffalo picture, it's really relevant, perhaps. So of course, we cannot make judgments on anybody else. Perhaps there could be really highly realized persons. And then, but in the exhibition there was a picture of a Lama who was holding a huge, mala in his hand. And then the devotees who were coming by to see him were touched by the Lama on their heads with this huge mala in his hands. So he had really worked hard to make that exhibition, but then after seeing that exhibition, I had the impression that what the Westerners call Tibetan Buddhism, Lamaism, perhaps this is true. If this is what he has to display about Tibetan Buddhism. So, do you see some difference between how Tibetan Buddhism is described as Lamaism in the text and what I explained now? So the authentic Tibetan Buddhism comes from the Nalanda tradition. So we have to rely on the teachings of these great masters who have written those the great texts on Buddhist philosophy and practice. And so we have to be really careful if you dilute it. Otherwise, you may not be able to point to the real Japan Buddhism, and as it gets more and more diluted by people who do not really understand the teachings. So what I wish to say is, on the basis of the highest Yoga Tantra, there is a possibility for attaining the three bodies of a Buddha, which are of one taste. But then in the three lower tantras, this is not taught explicitly. But because there is such a result that we can attain from this stage onward, we have the practices of deity yoga practices, where we visualize as a deity within the meditation on emptiness. And therefore, in order to create the causes within ourselves for that kind of result and stage of Buddhahood, we have to do the practices. So although it doesn't happen right away at this stage for us, but then as we train ourselves, what happens is this innate clear light consciousness can serve as the cause for our the Buddha's bodies. And so on the basis of this clear light mind, we do arise or transform ourselves into a deity, and then do all the rest of the practices related to the Bodhisattva path. So in order to give the initiation, the master has to do certain preliminary practices, such as transforming himself into, or visualizing himself as a deity, and then making the request to the deity in the mandala to permit him to give the initiation. And then after doing all these things, giving the initiation. So by giving initiation, what is being done is you are authorized to do the tantric deity yoga practices. And so you are empowered to, or authorized to do all the deity yoga practices. Therefore, it's called empowerment or initiation. So this initiation is called the maturing initiation. And then there's initiation or empowerment, which is at the path stage, the stage of path. So which is the means by which you are led to that of the highest the Buddha's Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya, and therefore you have also the resultant initiation or empowerment. So you have these three. So in order to actualize the path initiation and the resultant initiation, you have to be received this maturing initiation. So there are many different meditational deities. On the one hand, we say that there is no creator. Buddhism doesn't exist except theistic, creator God. But then if you don't understand correctly, it might seem that during deity yoga practice, you might get the impression that Buddhism actually accepts creator. so that some people don't understand Buddhism well, and then have the impression that there is some kind of a creator God in Buddhism because of all these different deities. So in Tantra, we have that of Arya Avalokiteshvara, who is the embodiment of compassion. So within this practice, Arya Avalokiteshvara, there is this lineage or tradition of the practice on Avalokiteshvara that has come down from the nun Lakshmi Para. Perhaps she was also a sister of Nagabodhi or somebody. And so this initiation that we have came to Tibet concerns that Avalokiteshvara with 1,000 arms and 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes, and it has been really beneficial in Tibet. So it's very good that we have a practice of based on Avalokiteshvara, because we don't have to think about overcoming our enemies or evil beings and so forth. In Tibet, one master, Deti Rinpoche or somebody, has said that when you recite the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra of Avalokiteshvara, what you think about is that of the suffering of the sentient beings in the 6 realms of existence. Otherwise, when you recite mantras of other deities for power and longevity and so forth, you immediately have some expectation for yourself for long life or power and so forth. And so unlike these, the mantra of Avalokiteshvara has this effect of thinking about the suffering of other sentient beings. So in order to do this initiation, we have the tradition of the practice of doing this gektor, dharma offering, to drive away any interrupters who might otherwise hinder this practice of the initiation.
Get on love you what the minutes on almost all the Cabarado, Tuji, the Shira,
So, having given the driven away the evil forces, next,
the
Master has created a virtual fence around the space of where the initiation is giving. So, in this for this initiation, the mandala within the mandala there are 5 deities. In the center is that of Avalokiteshvara, belongs to Amitabha, the lineage, and then around him there are 4 Dhyani Buddhas. But there's now, in order to request for this initiation, you make the mandala offering. Yabarashu itam guru ranam mandala kamniyadayami. In order to receive the initiation, you have to first have to correct your motivation. For that, in the general tantra of the Kriya Tantra, so there is this quotation, the verse which Holiness just recited. What it means is the tantric practitioner, amongst the tantric practitioner, we have the 4 sangha members. So, practitioner has to be any of these 4 sangha members. What the 4 sangha members are the bhikshus and bhikshunis, and then the upasaka and upasikas, male lay practitioners and female lay practitioners. And in the Chinese tradition, we have, of course, the Bhikshuni and Bhikshu lineages. And then, of course, there are people who have taken the lay vows, lay practitioners' vows. So if you could take the vows of a lay person, then we can have all 4 sanghas, sangha members. So for these, for the upasikas, you have the 5 vows: abstaining from killing human beings, and telling big lies, and stealing, and then sexual misconduct, and also drinking alcohol. So, with regard to these vows, of course, even in terms of from the legal point of view, if you kill somebody or if you steal things from people or lie, then what happens is you go to prison sometimes. And then, with regard to the lie, here the lie is the big lie where you claim to have some kind of a realization, even if you don't have them. This is more the lamas who sit on throne and give teachings to others are more prone to this kind of lie, perhaps. But not ordinary people may not be so. There may not be so much danger for them. So as I mentioned the other day about the Dharma kings, people who are claiming to be Dharma kings in mainland China, and Tibetans, I mean, they are actually committing this kind of lie. And then also, if you commit raping others, of course you go to prison. And then the fifth vow is that of drinking alcohol. So my master, preceptor master of my bhikshu ordination, Ling Rinpoche, my late, one time one Tibetan came to Ling Rinpoche and took the Upasika vows. And this man, after taking the vows, Ling Rinpoche explained the vows, and then the man said, "I cannot give up drinking alcohol." And then Ling Rinpoche had to say that, never mind, you can take a little bit of chang. So if you can, of course, give up drinking alcohol, please do so. If you can't, then take a little bit, and do not take alcohol to the point that you get drunk. Because if you take too much alcohol, then it harms your health, and you also lose money. So just have a taste of chang. The best is you have a tradition of smelling the alcohol in the West. So perhaps that doesn't really, that's not too bad if you just smell the alcohol. So if you can keep all these 5 vows, you are somebody who is called Yongso Gengyen, which means a Gengyen Upasika, keeping all the vows. Or you can keep, there is an Upasika who keeps only 1 vow, or some of the vows, or most of the vows, and then all 5. So if you think that you can keep all the 5 vows, please take all the 5 vows. If you can't, whatever number of vows you can take, please take them. So you have to be clear. So those who wish to take the vows, Upasaka vows, please stand up and make 3 prostrations to the Buddha, thinking that the Buddha himself is here in person. It would be best if you can prostrate, stand up and then do the prostration. Otherwise, you can just kneel down and do your prostration if you can't. And now please kneel on your right knee. Whatever vows number of vows you take, they have to be taken with the basis of taking refuge in the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. On the basis of the taking refuge. These 3, the Buddha, Dharma, are the refuges, the real refuges for those who wish to reach liberation. So the actual refuge is that of cessation, Dharma, and here the cessation could be understood in terms of liberation, the nirvana only, or particularly here in this case, you should think of you should aspire to attain that of the Svabhavakaya of a Buddha, which is a part of Dharmakaya. And so whichever number of vows you are going to take, please be clear in your mind. And so you would think that you're going to take this vow, and please repeat these lines after me. Please repeat these. Please repeat. Loben Gongsusul. Master, please pay attention to this saying. Okay. So say your name, please. From now on, until my death, I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Until my death, please take me as Upasika. You're repeating the same lines. Please. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Until my death, please take me as Upasika. So at the end of this third repetition, when you hear Genyen Tu, which means please take me as Upasika, His Holiness will snap his fingers. At that time, you have to feel convinced that you, whatever number of vows you have decided to take, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, all 5, feel that you have received all these vows within yourself. Open. Master, please pay attention. I, this with this name, I take refuge until my death to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Sorry. Please feel convinced if they receive the vows. Say Lexo. So you may not need to repeat these the precepts that you are going to keep. So whatever number of vows you have taken, the lines that I'm going to recite mean is that just as the past arahats have taken the vows and kept them and reached, likewise I will keep these vows that I've taken today. So think that. Please sit down. So this, with this, since people have taken the Upasaka vows, then we have the 4 Sangha members. And then in the general Tantra of Kriya Tantra, it also mentions that of cultivating or generating bodhicitta. You have this text with the wish to liberate all sentient beings. This verse that so here first we are going to go do the generation of aspiring bodhicitta. On page number 6. So in front you visualize the Arya Avalokiteshvara in the mandala, and in the space around that mandala, then please imagine Master Nagarjuna and his disciples and the lineage holders, and then also Master Asanga and the masters in his lineage. And so since we are going through, this is being done in the Tibetan tradition, please also imagine all the masters of the Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Geluk lineages. And also the great masters of bodhisattvas who are on the bodhisattva grounds and so forth. And also the Chinese masters who have done great service to the Dharma and sentient beings. And similarly, Indonesians or Vietnamese or Koreans, Japanese, So imagine the masters of your own traditions who have served the Dharma and the sentient beings greatly. So without going through the prayer, please reflect on the great qualities of the Buddha, body, speech, and mind of these masters and the deities, and especially their the bodhicitta, the compassionate heart that they have, and the through which they have served. They serve the sentient beings and the Dharma. And so, without having to go through the prayer, we are going through the seven limb prayer. So you do first prostration to these masters and the deities, remembering their qualities, and then make offering. You're offering your body, speech, and mind to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that you have imagined, and the Buddhas of the past, who have the Buddhas of the present, and the Buddhas who will come in the future. All of them are have served the Buddha and will serve and are serving the sentient beings. And therefore, since the Buddhas are there only to serve other sentient beings, for the welfare of other sentient beings, if you also offer your body, speech, and mind, you are doing the practice of following their footsteps in serving sentient beings. So, in the general practice of taking refuge, according to the Hinayana tradition, you are not actually giving your body, speech, and mind to the Buddhas in the service of sentient beings. But in the context of Mahayana practice of taking refuge, you are offering your body, speech, and mind in the service of, so that they are used in the service of the well-being of sentient beings. And also you think of training yourself in the footsteps of the Buddhas. And this is the best kind of offering that you can make. And then whatever wrongdoings you have engaged yourselves in terms of harming others with your body, speech, and mind, you recall them and feel regret about them, and then confess. And then rejoice in the good things that you have done, that they are the practitioners of the arhats of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhayanas, and also the sentient beings who are ordinary sentient beings, as well as the Buddhas. So rejoice in the good deeds of all these 5 types of beings. And then request the Buddhas not to pass away, but stay in the world for the benefit of all sentient beings, and then request them to turn the wheel of the Dharma or give teachings for the benefit of Dharma. And so all these different practices, or this from beginning from the prostration down to, and then dedicate all these for the benefit of all sentient beings, to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So with this, having done these 7 limbs, now please kneel on your right knee, and everybody repeat these lines after His Holiness for the aspiring bodhicitta. Please repeat. With a wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused with wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. So, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain and dispel the sufferings of the world. From the beginning, with the wish, free all beings, I should go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused with wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain and dispel the suffering miseries of the world. Now, at the end of the third repetition, feel determined that you will work to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So focus on this mind that you have generated, the full awakening mind or bodhicitta that you have regenerated now. Then make resolution that you will never give this up. And done with the wish to free all beings, I shall go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach enlightenment. Enthused with wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate a mind of full awakening for the benefit of all beings, sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. So with this, we have fulfilled the first two lines of this the quotation from Tantra, which mentions the four Sangha members and then the intelligence of ones of the Mahayana. So it is said that the tantric initiation and tantric instructions should be given to such a person who has who fall within the four sangha members, and also have on top of that having taken people who have taken the bodhicitta or generated bodhicitta. So on top of that, it's important if you feel rather uncomfortable with the Madhyamaka understanding of emptiness, for the time being, you can also think about emptiness that is taught according to the Chitta Matra or the mind-only school. Even in India, there were masters who were first holding the Chitta Matra view. When they reached the completion stage, so the masters of India were said to have entered into the Madhyamaka, the final view of Madhyamaka. And so, just as this is like similar to the Dzogchen tradition, where it is said that after having trained the disciple for some time, there comes a time when the mind of the disciples enter or are able to become receptive to this, the final view of emptiness. So unless you have some understanding of idea of emptiness, in any kind of tantric practice, you start with a meditation on emptiness with mantras such as Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarvadhamma Swabhava Shuddha Hang and so forth. Or so without emptiness, understanding or idea of emptiness, it's not possible to do tantric practice. So you should not just remain as you are now. Like if you don't have understanding of emptiness, you should train your mind in the understanding of emptiness, and then develop the insight into it gradually. So to practice Tantra, the motivation that you should have should not be for longevity or for power in this life. So this is a wrong motivation to take initiation, and also to think of having a good rebirth in the next life, or to become enlightened just for yourself alone. These are also wrong motivations to receive this initiation. Now, what kind of motivation you should have is that of becoming a Buddha, so that you have all the resources to serve other sentient beings inexhaustibly. So with this in mind, please have this highest motivation. Generate this highest motivation within yourself. Next is the disciples rising into the deity. So meditate. So just as I said earlier, first think where this I is. You have a sense of I, but just think where this I is. Of course, the I, you exist, but then if you try to find where it is within the psychophysical aggregates, you will not find it. You cannot point to anything as being yourself. When you look at me, you see me, and I see Dalai Lama. Of course, that is a valid cognition. But then, if you check where I am, you can say I see his Dalai Lama's body, I can hear Dalai Lama's speech, but where is Dalai Lama? Really? So do you see the Dalai Lama really? You see my body, you hear my voice. Where is Dalai Lama? Just reflect. And this also goes, is similar. This is same with the Arya Avalokiteshvara. You cannot point to anything of his body or the Dharmakaya, the wisdom Dharmakaya of Avalokiteshvara as being Avalokiteshvara himself. So whether you think of yourself or others or samsara or nirvana, you cannot point to anything as being this and that. You cannot find. What that shows is that things do not, it doesn't mean that things do not exist, but that things do not have some kind of essential existence from themselves. So how things exist is in dependence on other factors, and therefore there's no independent existence. So when you analyze within yourself, you don't find yourself, and that's unfindability of yourself is finding that of the emptiness of yourself, and now dissolve into emptiness, and from within that you arise into Avalokiteshvara. Please repeat this. So you have requested to let you into the mandala. So So next comes bearing a very firm belief in Tantra, which I have explained earlier. So you have to have a very firm belief in the Tantra. So please think that you are being instructed about that. Next is Bodhisattva vows, but we will not do it here, but do it during the actual initiation. Next comes that of blessing the body, speech and mind of the disciples. So imagine Om on your crown or forehead, and A at your throat, and Hum at your heart. These 3 syllables. And when I do the gesture of touching these 3 places, think that you are being blessed. So the Tibetan word for blessing here is basically Chin Lup. Chin means something splendid or splendor, and Lup means changing. So you are being changed into magnificence. So the impure body, speech and mind that we have now are being blessed to transform into the body, speech and mind of a Buddha. So that is the meaning of blessing or Chinlap. And then, having blessed your body, speech and mind as the body, speech and mind of Avalokiteshvara, you are offered these different offerings of flower, incense for your nose, lamp for your eyes, perfume at your heart. Next is taking the scoop of a handful of water. This is meant for purifying the negativities of body, speech and mind of the disciples. So the mantra here is Om Shri Svabhi Shuddhama Sarva, and so forth. So because all phenomena are free from intrinsic existence, therefore your negativities can be purified. If the negativities, if the defilements were to exist independently without depending on causes and conditions, you cannot change, because they have come through causes and conditions. Then there is possibility to transform or purify them. And then in Buddhist philosophy, we have something called the natural principle of nature. So when it comes to consciousness, the fact that some state of consciousness arise and then cease is can be explained on the basis of this principle of nature. And then there is the principle of relativity, relation, and then the principle of function of things. So the things outside have their own different functions. And then there is the principle of conclusiveness. So the fact that the mind has the quality of clarity and luminosity and awareness is nature. So by taking this water, please imagine that all the your body, speech, and mind, the negativities of body, speech, and mind are all cleansed. And then next is the distribution of the blessed string, and also the kusha grass, which is not necessary, but perhaps you may use this as a souvenir of having received this initiation. So the kusha grass will not be distributed to everybody, but people who are inside. So it's not necessary to have the kusha grass, but just for your souvenir, you can take it. Don't think that after receiving the initiation, don't think that you are done with the initiation, therefore you can throw it away. So just take it and put it in your house. When you get back home, kusha grass is considered to be an element for purification. So it is believed in India that if you put kusha grass in your home, it helps to not be affected by negative influences. So it has some element of purification, but I don't know about it. So it says. Nanglot, chilo madam, nanglot damsons. I have a story to tell. When in Graz in Austria, I did in Chakala Chakra initiation. At that time, Tao Ziyang, who died, the late Tao Ziyang's one of his friends came there, and he told me that when he got back home to China, he gave this his kusha grass that he got from the initiation to Tao Ziyang, and Tao Ziyang was very happy and kept it beside his bed. And around his time of death, he left some message, his last wish, to his children and family members, and said that if His Holiness the Dalai Lama could know about my death, hear about my death. So you should keep this. So if you find no success in your business and so forth, then perhaps you may get angry, and at that time you can throw away this kusha grass. So this is the preliminary process of the initiation is done. So we make So now imagine that you are outside the mandala at the eastern door and requesting the master to give you an initiation. Please repeat these lines of request. So as I explained, the meaning of secret mantra yana, which has to be practiced secretly. So therefore, in the beginning of the initiation, you are not supposed to see the deities in the mandala, and therefore to indicate that, you put on this blindfold on your eyes. Is this yours? So imagine that you put on this blindfold as if covering your eyes, and then you are given a flower. Imagine that you are being given this garland of flower that you would use and afterwards to make offering to the deities when you are inside the mandala. And then imagine Om on your crown, at your crown, at your throat, and then Hum at your heart. And imagine that rays of light emit white, red, and blue from these three syllables respectively, Om, Ah, Hum, and these lights cleanse all your negativities of body, speech, and mind. So just imagine that happening. And then comes the prostration. You hold your hands in this mudra of the Padma lineage, the lotus lineage. First, hold your hand to palms together, and then open all the fingers out. And this is called the lotus lineage mudra. So hold this at your heart and please repeat this mantra after me. Om Padma Ubhavaya Swaha. Next is the Bodhisattva vows, taking the Bodhisattva vows. As I explained yesterday, those who feel that they can keep their Bodhisattva vows, the 18 root Bodhisattva vows and the 46 auxiliary vows, you should take the Bodhisattva vows. Those who feel that they cannot keep them or are hesitant about, then you should not take the vows, but make a prayer or wish that that you will engage in the Bodhisattva practices, and I will generate this mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta. As I explained yesterday, in the Bodhisattva practice, restraining your body and speech are not main, but restraining your mind is primary. So, with the wish to benefit all sentient beings, you should have this motivation to either directly or indirectly, you should think of helping other sentient beings. So this is something which even the Christians, Jews, or Hindus, or Muslims can do. So not thinking that you will not harm others, not hurt others, but do only good to others, to help others. So this is not only about what the Buddhists can do, but all the major traditions, religious traditions, practitioners can do that, practice love and kindness and compassion. So we'll not go through the long version of the text. So whether you are taking the Bodhisattva vow or not, if you are, at least wish to cultivate this good heart, please kneel on your right knee, like before. So after taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, what all the negative actions that I've done in the past, out of self-centeredness, I will confess them, things like that. And then all sentient beings who doing virtuous actions, virtuous activities, and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, whatever good things they are doing, rejoice in them. Just as the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have trained themselves and reached their goals, likewise I will think that I will do so. So with regard to the practices of Bodhisattvas that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have engaged themselves in, they comprise of the morality, generosity, joyous effort, concentration. And so think that you will train yourself in the Bodhisattva practices, just as Master Nagarjuna, Nagabodhi, and so forth have done. So with this in mind, please repeat these lines of taking Bodhisattva vows. So those who are taking the Bodhisattva vow feel that you are taking the Bodhisattva. Kunjo sumla ta gyapchi. Dikbatam je sosur sha. Drowe gyala je rang. Sanje changchub yiki sung. So you are going to repeat it for the second time. So what you're saying in the last line is that you will take to mind this and the enlightenment of Buddhahood. So think that you are going to lead all sentient beings to a state of Buddhahood, and for that you are going to become a Buddha, and therefore take the Bodhisattva vows. Dikbatam je sosur sha. Drowe gyala je rang. Sanje changchub yiki sung. At the end of this final line, just feel convinced. Those who have taken the Bodhisattva vow now feel that you have received the Bodhisattva vows just as your master here, from whom you are taking these vows. So I do take the Bodhisattva vows and then have the determination to train myself in the Bodhisattva deeds. And so think that I will train myself in the following the footsteps of my guru. And so those who can take the vows feel that you have received the vows at the end of this repetition. Jowe gyala jen rang, sanje changchub yiki sung. Please sit down. So these lines are said in Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. Whether you are Buddhist or not, from now on, you think that you will be somebody. You will be somebody who will have good heart, warm heart towards others, and who will serve others as best as you can. And so this makes life meaningful. And you can also advise your friends and near and dear ones to be like that. So if you practice yourself, then you can tell others to do the same. Next is the all-encompassing yoga. So just as you have heard me today and the other days, all sentient beings do not want suffering, but they want all happiness. But all of them have the Buddha nature within themselves, which makes them fit for overcoming, or which by which they have the potential to purify all the negativities and attain all the good qualities. And therefore, just have this determination that you will lead all sentient beings to the Buddhahood. But of course, at this stage, if you think about your own condition, you do not have that ability, capability. For example, if a mother were who do not have hands, arms, cannot save her child from being drowned, from drowning in the river. So likewise, if you do not know the methods, you cannot help others. Therefore, now meditate on Bodhicitta. Think that you will lead all sentient beings to Buddhahood, and therefore, for that reason, that you will become a Buddha. Have this wish to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Meditate on this for a minute. So this mind of bodhicitta, imagine it's transforming into a disc of light, very radiant at your heart, you yourself, as Avalokiteshvara. And now next you have to meditate on emptiness, thinking that nothing exists. In the 400 verses of Aryadeva, he says that whatever happens through dependence on others cannot have independent existence. So long as something is dependent on others, it cannot have its own independent existence. So dependence on others and dependence and independence are opposites. So whatever is dependent is not independent. So if something has to attain its existence, its identity through dependence on others, then it cannot be an independent existence. And therefore, when we use the term dark or selfhood, in selfhood, to have something to have selfhood or independent existence here is referred to as being, according to the commentary on these lines from this 400 verses, the commentary by Chandrakirti says that dark or selfhood here refers to something being independent or not dependent on other factors. So when we, in the context of selflessness, what self here means is independent existence. Here we are not talking about self as opposed to others, but selfhood in the sense of the self in the sense of not being dependent on others. And since there is nothing which is not dependent on others, things are all selfless. And therefore, if you check within yourself, you will not, if you try to examine yourself and try to find yourself within the psychophysical aggregates, you will not find anything that you can point to as yourself. And therefore, meditate on selflessness. And so the next two lines of Aryadeva says that because these are all these are not independently existing, therefore there is no selfhood in them. And so just meditate on this selflessness. So in the quotation from 400 verses, it says Dikun Rame, but Di is a term which refers to something near you. So you are nearest to yourself. We have to talk about the directions east, west, north and south in relation to something in the middle. So many people in many countries say that their country is the center of the universe, of this world. For the Singaporeans, Singapore is the center of the world. So for Indonesians, similarly, Indonesia is the center of the world, because you are where there. So the center of the whole universe, the billion world system, is this I, this one. So the term Di or this, all this, is without independence, therefore there is no self. So even a single word of the great masters have great meaning, significance. And so just meditate, even if you have no clear idea, no precise idea about what selfness is, at least think that there is no independent existence of yourself and all phenomena. And therefore, this realization of emptiness or selflessness, now to imagine it transforming into Vajra, five-spoked Vajra, white in color, standing on the moon that you have imagined earlier. So these are the two minds of bodhicitta and the realization of emptiness, which serves as cause for that of the Buddha's mind. And so thinking that you will keep these two minds, the bodhicitta, and repeat this mantra. Om Sava Yoga Citta, Om Sava Yoga Citta, Upatayami. Om Sava Yoga Citta, Upatayami. So what you have said is that you will never give up these two, this all-encompassing mind. So just as you have said that, this from in your day-to-day life, every day you have to remind yourself of these two thoughts. Whenever you can remind yourself of these two minds, it would be very good. And to use a very short version to remind yourself of these two, you can use these lines where you say, in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge, and whatever practices of generosity and so forth I have done, may they become the cause for Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so in these lines you come across the I 2 times. So you say, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. There's one I there, and then whatever merit I have done, generosity and so forth, may they become the cause. So the I comes 2 times in this verse. So you can think about the I and then think that this doesn't exist independently. So I do also reflect on these bodhicitta. It helps to relax oneself, and the understanding of emptiness gives a very broad perspective to look at. I'm not saying that I've realized bodhicitta, nor do I have the realization of emptiness. Otherwise I would be telling the big lie. So I had a friend when I talked about the generation stage and completion stage of Tantra. He told me that regarding the completion stage of Tantra, isn't it something that existed during the time of the Buddha and not today? So similarly, you should not think that bodhicitta and the understanding of emptiness is something that are like something of the past, and that you will not be able to cultivate them. All the texts that were written by the great masters like Nagarjuna and so forth were meant for us to study and understand the Dharma, and therefore we have to study them, read them, and then develop an understanding and acquaint our mind with these practices. So these 2 minds, the Vajra and the moon at your heart, a similar Vajra and moon are at the heart of the Guru, and imagine that a duplicate of this Vajra and moon at the heart of the Guru, duplicates come out and they merge with the Vajra and moon at your heart, and thereby stabilizing your bodhicitta and the understanding of emptiness in the form of the moon and the Vajra. And next is instructing you on the secret sea of Tantra. So having come to Dharamsala, you're now taking this you have taken Bodhisattva vows, but when you go back your home and reach there, don't say that I'm Bodhisattva, or because people will not know whether you have Bodhisattva or not. You might want to, you should not put some kind of a placard saying I'm Bodhisattva on your breast and show them. You should not do this. And then with regard to Tantra, it says that Tantra should not be disclosed to someone who do not have faith in Tantra, because if you tell someone who has no faith in Tantra that you have received Tantra, and then they will have disbelief in you, they will not believe you, and so it's not good to disclose the secrets. And now imagine that you are entering the mandala. So imagine that you are inside the mandala, and imagine you are going around the deities 3 times, and repeat this. Sudenda, Sudogo, Susoko, Benzasato, Adisiddhima, Maharata. Sudenda, Sudogo, Susoko, Benzasato, Adisiddhima, Maharata. Sudenda, Sudogo, Susoko, Benzasato, Adisiddhima. The next is prostration. Just hold your hands, your crown, and repeat this. Om Namate Hum. touch your throat and repeat this. Om Namah Mehum. Touch your heart. Nama Namahum Swaha. Repeat. So this is during prostration, prostrating with your body, speech and mind to the deities of the mandala. Let's repeat this. Tuji Chambo, Dala Oberzetus, Tuji Chambo, Dala Oberzetus, Tuji Chambo, Dala Oberzetus. So imagine that the master, who is in the form of Avalokiteshvara with 1,000 arms, 1,000 eyes, from his heart rays of light go out and invoke the blessings of body, speech and mind of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the form of Avalokiteshvara, and the body blessings come in the form of Avalokiteshvara, and then the speech blessings of the speech come in the form of a mantra of Avalokiteshvara, and then the blessing of the mind of Avalokiteshvara come down in the form of the symbols of Avalokiteshvara, such as lotus and the jewel and so forth. So imagine they come down to you and dissolve into you, thereby blessing you, body, speech and mind, with the blessing of body, speech and mind of the Avalokiteshvara. Now cover your eyes a little bit with the blindfold, and then lift it up and look up on the space, in the space above you, and see what color you see. Sometimes it happens that people can see different colors, like red or yellow and so forth. It doesn't happen all the time, so that's it. Now imagine that you are going around the mandala circle 3 times. Please repeat this. Now next is throwing the flower in the mandala. First the master makes prayers to the deities in the mandala. But if we have more time, the Lama should get up from the seat and go to the mandala. But I'll do it from the throne. Please repeat this. Sanje ngodu top jechir. Dala thuzer gonen dola member to jenge. Member gonen. Om bezabate girhana om. So one Rinpoche and then somebody from the sponsors are going to throw the flower. You have the flower in your hands, so hold them in your hand, in like this, as Son is showing, between your fingers, and imagine, make your prayer that this flower may fall on whichever deity you have the most karmic connection with. So there are 5 Dhyani Buddhas, which are the purified states of the 5 psychophysical aggregates. So you have to make a prayer that it may fall on the deity with which you have the most karmic connection. And then when the Singapore Bhikshu throws the flower, and imagine that all of us are throwing the flower in the mandala with our prayers. Partita Bedza Ho. So the flower has fallen out of the 5 Dhyana Buddhas. It fell on the Akshobhya, which is in the east. So the flower fell on the Akshobhya lineage. So by throwing this flower, so you belong. It has become clear that you belong to the Akshobhya lineage, and therefore your secret name is Akshobhya Vajra. So from this initiation of Avalokiteshvara, your secret name is Akshobhya Vajra. You have to keep this in mind. Take off the blindfold. Take off your blindfold. So now imagine that you are able to see all of the deities of the mandala of Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara in the center with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, just as you see Avalokiteshvara on that tanka, the huge tanka behind His Holiness. Now, with regard to the actual initiation, there are 2. One is that for attaining the Dharmakaya, having purified all the negativities of body, speech and mind, you first you attain Dharmakaya and also the Rupakaya. For Dharmakaya, the path that you cultivate is called the yoga without signs, and then the path that you cultivate for attaining the Rupakaya, the form body of a Buddha, is called the yoga with signs. So earlier I mentioned the maturing initiation, the path initiation, and then the resultant initiation. So the resultant initiation are those of the Rupakaya and Dharmakaya. The path initiation are those of the yoga with signs and without signs. And then please repeat this. So you have requested for the first initiation. Imagine that you are outside at the eastern door of the mandala to receive the initiations. So the master has invited the initiation beings, and then these initiation beings who are invited actually bestow the initiation upon us. So imagine that you are being given the initiation by these initiation beings. It's important to imagine this, that you are receiving the initiation, the water initiation first. So imagine that you have received this water initiation, by which you have become a fortunate one who can purify your negativities of body, speech and mind, together with the latent imprints. And having received this initiation, the water that is poured on you falls on your head, and it overflows on your crown, thereby crowning you with the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And you are empowered to attain the Dharmakaya. Repeat this. So again, initiation beings are invited, and imagine that these initiation beings are conferring the initiation of the crown upon you. So imagine that having received this crown initiation, your negativities of body, speech and mind are cleansed, and you are empowered to practice the yoga with signs, and thereby leaving the imprint in your mind for attaining the Rupakaya at the resultant stage. So having received this initiation, you are made offering. The next is giving the mantra, oral transmission. So imagine at the heart of the Guru, who is in the form of Avalokiteshvara, 13,000 armed, 1,000 eyes. At his heart, there's an Samaya Sattva Avalokiteshvara. And at the heart of the Samaya Sattva, you imagine Dhyana Sattva. At the heart of the Guru, you imagine a Hum syllable or Shri syllable, and around that Shri syllable, imagine the Om Mani Padme Hum, the 6-syllable mantra. And as you repeat the mantra after the Guru, imagine that chains of this mantra at the heart of the Guru come out of his mouth and enter your mouth and goes down into your heart, and thereby placing the mantra, the Avalokiteshvara mantra, the long one first. And so imagine the first time you are repeating this, the mantra comes and are placed at your heart, going down from your mouth. And then second time, the chains of mantra merge, and the third time, the mantra at your heart is stabilized. Arahate, Samayasam, Daya, Namasarva, Tathagatabe, Arahatabe, Samayasam, Bodhibe, Namarya, Avalokiteshvara, Shauraya, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Mahakarunikaya, Teatha, Daradara. Diri diri, duru duru, etewat, zale zale, per zale, kusume ware, ilimili, zidi zola, abana eso, namara nataya, namarya, jana sagara, verusana, vayuarazaya, tathagataya, arahate, samayasam, vadaya, namasarva, tathagatebya, arahatepe, samayasam, vadebya. Namarya, Avalokite, Shvaraya, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Maharunikaya, Dayatha, Daradara, Diri Diri, Duru Duru, Etewat, Zale Zale, Per zale, Kusume Ware, Ile Mele, Siti Zola, Apana Soa, Namaranataya, Avanamaya, Marazanaya, Vayarazaya, Tathagataya, Arahate, Samayasam, Bodhibya, Namarya, Avalokite, Shoraya, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Mahakarunikaya, Teatha, Daradara, Diri Diri, Duru Duru, Etewat, Zale Zale, Per zale, Kusume War, Elemele, Zitizola, Abanaya Swaha, Ammani Pemehum, Ammani Pemehum, Ammani Pemehum. No. So with this we are done with the oral transmission of the mantras of Avalokiteshvara. So may you receive all the blessings of the mantras. So, having received this, you have been given the appendage to the initiation. What this means is you will be a good person, and then being a good person, you will also advise others to be a good person. So with this, the 1,000 and 1,000 eyes, 1,000 arm Chandrisic initiation is finished. So the main precept and practice is those who have taken Bodhisattva vows, those who have received Bodhisattva vows, you have to keep the 18 root Bodhisattva vows and then the 46 auxiliary vows and be not tainted by the faults regarding these vows. So those who have not taken the vows, of course, you can also be a good person and have good heart, warm heart towards others and think of helping others. As I said earlier, you should also, in your daily life, you should recite the verses of taking refuge in bodhicitta, which I mentioned earlier, and be a good person. And if you can recite the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, at least one round of mala every day, that would be very good. But if you have more time, then you may recite the 6-syllable mantra, 10 rounds of mala. So don't want it to
really very, very keen to learn something about Buddha Dharma. So I'm very happy. Now important is practice, action. Law of karma, law of causality, and law of karma. Karma means action. So we must implement these sort of idea we get that must implement. Then the effective result or concrete result will come. Just to remain lip service, then not much value, like that. So thank you. See you again afternoon. Ka. Sashi beje chuje me da ra ro ne je yin de jen ba de sa je yin me de o ye ro ga na la je no je ba je ye dang go ra na me da la ga ne ya da ya me. Ten de som de da chan do. Ten de som de da chan do. Kyo la da ne bu la na. Che je la ma song wa da. Cha ye jan de jia du su. Cha ye jan de jia du su. Cha ye jan de jia du su. 야, 나 대리 싫으니 우수잖아. 수인. 소리. 못 다다래. Heart Sutra, Indonesian. Oh, you looks like European. Ah, oh, maybe Dutch, isn't it?
Sutra Sari, Arya Bhagawati Sutra Sari, kesempurnaan kebijaksanaan. Sujud kepada para Buddha dan Bodhisattva. Demikianlah yang telah saya dengar pada suatu waktu. Pada waktu itu, yang Buddha sedang berada di Raja Griha, di puncak bukit Widakuta, bersama dengan serombongan biksu dan Bodhisattva. Saat itu, yang Buddha sedang terselap dalam meditasi ajaran yang disebut kesadaran yang mendalam. Pada saat yang sama, Arya Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteswara mengamati secara seksama praktek kesempurnaan kebijaksanaan prasna paramita yang mendalam. Mengamati secara sempurna bahwa pancakanda, kelima bagian dari diri seseorang, tidak mempunyai sifat keberadaan yang hakiki. Kemudian, melalui pengaruh kekuatan Hyang Buddha, Biksu Buddha Sariputra berpaling dan bertanya kepada Arya Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteswara, jika seorang putra atau putri keluarga agung ingin mengikuti praktek prasna paramita yang mendalam, apa yang seharusnya mereka lakukan? Inilah kemudian jawaban yang diberikan oleh Arya Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteswara kepada biksu muda Sariputra. Inilah Sariputra, apa yang harus direnungkan oleh seorang putra atau putri keluarga agung jika mereka berkehendak mengikuti praktek prasna paramita yang mendalam. Pertama, lihatlah bahwa pancakanda, kelima bagian dari diri seseorang, tidak mempunyai sifat keberadaan yang hakiki. Wujudmu adalah sunyata, sunyata adalah wujudmu. Sunyata itu tidak lain dari wujudmu, dan wujudmu tidak lain dari sunyata. Demikian pula dengan rasa, kecerdasan, emosi, dan kegiatan mental yang lain, dan berbagai kesadaran, semuanya sunya. Dengan demikian dapat dikatakan Sariputra, semua keberadaan itu sunya, tanpa ciri-ciri, tanpa mula, tanpa akhir, tidak pernah bernoda, tidak pernah menjadi bersih, tidak berkurang, tidak bertambah. Dengan demikian dapat dikatakan Sariputra, dalam sunyata tiada wujud, tiada rasa, tiada kecerdasan, tiada emosi dan kegiatan mental yang lain, tiada berbagai kesadaran. Tiada mata, tiada telinga, tiada hidung, tiada lidah, tiada badan, tiada pikir, tiada yang dilihat, tiada yang didengar, tiada yang dibau, tiada yang dirasakan, tiada yang disentuh, dan tiada yang dipikir. Tiada indera penglihatan, tiada kesadaran indera penglihatan.
So within this body, when someone practices the path, they can reach the arhatship. Even after reaching arhatship, they could still have this body, the 5 psychophysical aggregates, which are the results of those of destructive emotions and karma. But after death, what remains? If you was to say that only the mind remains after, even after death for an arahat, so for example, in our case, when we die, this body, when a person finishes his or her lifespan, then he's said to have died. And so the consciousness, your consciousness has left the body and has severed its connection with the body. But while you are in the clear light state, it's a very subtle consciousness. So when this karmically obtained psychophysical aggregate has stopped, then there should be this clear light consciousness still left. And therefore, in the case of the arahats, even after their death, there is something called the mental body. So when arahats die, they still remain in that mental body. I'm not clear about it, but for the Mahayana practitioners, when the bodhisattvas reach the pure grounds, then it is said that they do attain certain body, which is called, which is the result of uncontaminated karmas. So this kind of was mental body that the bodhisattvas attain is said to have been attained through what are known as the ground of the imprint of ignorance and uncontaminated karma. And this is, of course, sometimes referred to also as one of the 4 maras. And so even after having attained that kind of mental body, then there is also depth of that for bodhisattvas. So maripakshaksa, or the ground of the imprint of ignorance, is that of the cognitive obscuration. So this body that is attained through such cognitive obscuration is something that we have to also abandon. So does this kind of body, the mental body, serve as a substantial cause for the form body of a Buddha? It's very difficult to say so.
Bengali, I think. So since he spent some time in Indonesia, he may know Indonesian language, maybe. So like that. So indeed, I'm very happy. Thank you. Now, today, about Tantrayana. Of course, through Tibetan. Da sanga doji tekbe che. Di conditions level ina. Sanga doji tekwas. Dan sikshidwa. Da sikshigi sang sa de karso level ina. 영자지 말이지. 점된데 송배 거둘이네 용자지 송야 말에 자 뒤제 냠린 제배 거둘레 상시 배배 두고 지레 체그래 배나 당시 냠지 로지
And the practitioners also didn't do the practice rather publicly. And then with regard to, even within the Sutrayana, the bodhicitta, cultivation of bodhicitta through this means of equalizing and exchanging oneself with others was not a practice which was given in the public. But even that was said to have been practiced very secretly. And so therefore Tantra is something which has to be practiced in secret by beings who were highly developed in the spiritual attainments. And then mantra, because of that, it is the Tantric teaching is called secret, and mantra means protecting the mind. Man refers to the mind, and tra has the connotation of saving, protecting. And so what Tantrayana protects one from is that of the ordinary perception and ordinary conception of oneself. And therefore, of course, we have certain practices of Tantra where you can recite mantras and so forth, but the main disciple or the follower of Tantra is what they do is they visualize themselves as a deity. And therefore, within that perspective, within that vision of a deity, they don't they do away with the apprehension of themselves as being some ordinary person, and therefore it's called mantra. And then Vajra here refers to visualizing oneself as a deity. And within this, even while you visualize yourself as a deity, it doesn't happen while you still hold on to this ordinary body and mind that you have now. So what it means is Vajra here refers to having meditated on the emptiness first, and from within that meditation on emptiness, then you transform into a deity. And the main specific disciples, as they're called, the receptive disciples, the main ones should have realized emptiness, have the penetrative vision or insight into emptiness, and then from within that meditation on emptiness, while your mind is fully absorbed in emptiness, then all the ordinary appearances also disappear, and that mind itself, absorbed in emptiness, in your imagination, from that state of meditation on emptiness, then you arise, or you transform yourself into a deity, and therefore the deity becomes the basis for the realization of emptiness as well. So when you do that, there is some significance of so in Tantra, when you meditate, in the Sutrayana, of course, when you meditate on emptiness, you are not emphasizing on or making effort to see the object onto which you establish emptiness. But because the mind becomes very familiar with the emptiness, And of course, as the practitioner progresses in his or her experience of emptiness deeper and deeper, then there may be a time when all the rest of the objects, the conventional objects, might also disappear from their vision while they are absorbed in emptiness. But here in Tantra, you right from the beginning, then you will you do realize emptiness, and within that perspective you also imagine or visualize a deity, yourself as deity, and therefore this within one instance of consciousness you have both the profound vision of emptiness and the vast vision of the deity. And therefore, these two become indivisible in tantric practice of deity yoga. And so, you arise into a deity from this state of mind which is absorbed in emptiness. So, when you within that experience, when you think about an I, then this I is designated, or it happens, the sense of I happens on the basis of the visualization of the deity. And therefore you have what we call the divine pride and the clear vision of a deity. And so that is the meaning of Vajra here. And then Yana, or vehicle, refers to the means by which you travel to the destination of enlightenment. So that which leads you, that means, but that leads you to that and to the goal is called the vehicle. So that's why we have the term secret mantra, Vajra, vehicle. So why do we need to have this pure vision of yourself as a deity and the divine pride of yourself as a deity? If you say it's just because this was what the Vajradhara has said, then that's not enough. So for example, even in the case of the perfection vehicle, the Sutrayana, this body, the aggregates, the psychophysical aggregates that we have, which were results of the this samsaric psychophysical aggregate, which are the results of our ignorance and the karma and delusion.
Semua ini benar seluruhnya, termasuk unsur pikir dan kesadaran unsur pikiran. Tiada kesalah pengertian mengenai duniamu. Tiada berakhirnya kesalah pengertian ini. Dan semua ini benar seluruhnya, termasuk proses penuaanmu dan kematianmu. Juga diberhentikannya proses penuaanmu dan kematianmu. Tiada duka, tiada sebab duka, tiada berakhirnya duka, tiada jalan untuk mengakhiri duka, tiada kebijaksanaan, tiada yang dicapai, dan tiada yang tidak dicapai. Maka Sariputra, karena tiada yang harus dicapai, para Bodhisattva dapat melaksanakan praktek prasna paramita dan tinggal terserap dalam prasna paramita ini, sehingga kesadaran mereka bebas dari halangan atau gangguan apapun. Dan ini membuat mereka bebas dari segala ketakutan. Dengan mengatasi semua kesalah pengertian yang ada, mereka mencapai tingkat akhir bebas dari duka, nirwana. Semua Buddha masa lampau, sekarang dan masa yang akan datang juga mengikuti dan mengandalkan prasna paramita ini, sehingga mereka dihantarkan menuju pencerahan sempurna, mencapai tingkat yang tak terbandingkan, pencerahan agung yang lengkap dan sempurna. Maka begitulah kata-kata suci dari prasna paramita, kata-kata suci dari pengetahuan yang agung, kata-kata suci yang tiada taranya, kata-kata suci yang tak terbandingkan, kata-kata suci yang secara tuntas mengakhiri semua duka, Kata-kata suci yang harus dimengerti sebagai kebenaran sejati yang tidak mungkin palsu. Kata-kata suci prasna paramita yang dituturkan untukmu. Tayata gate gate para gate para samgate Bodhi Swaha.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Some of you may know through Tisha Dipamkara, so we Tibetan Buddhism also have some connection with Indonesian Buddhism in ancient time. Tisha Dipamkara, before he came to Tibet, he spent some time in Indonesia and received general teaching, and particularly the Bodhisattva teaching from Lamas Selingba. So maybe Tisha Dipamkara, of course, he came from Bengali, so his mother tongue